Yeah, thank you for the introduction and hi everybody. I'm Michelle and I've been a user experience designer, a freelance user experience designer since a few years. And as already mentioned, I'll talk about some user research methods, or I'd better say alternative user research methods today. In particular, we're going to talk about why you might need them, what they're good for, and how to use them. So yeah, I'll jump right in. And so most of the times, people already know, clients, stakeholders, the team already knows that there is an importance to understand your users, to know what they want, what their pain points are. But still, there's a lot of times where it just gets ignored for multiple reasons. And so some of those reasons, and I'm sure a lot of us have heard at least a few of them before, are that clients think they know their users. They say they will do it at a later stage, or that they already do competitor research, which, as we know, is not really user research. They don't have access to their users. They think they don't need it. They don't have the budget. They use Google Analytics only. Process doesn't allow it. They don't think it's important, or they don't have time. Um, so some of those reasons are usually because of a lack of knowledge. Someone saying we know our users most of the times really does believe that they know their users without conducting any research. So with those kind of reasons or sayings, it's best if you try to educate the people you're talking to. Show and explain different methods, show and explain examples of companies that have used research and what kind of insights they've gained. And also talk about the different kind of methods for the different process steps, the time and the budget needed for those. And another thing is start small. If they're hesitant to give you the go on doing user research, start with small, tiny studies, or, as I mentioned before, use alternative methods. And then we also have the other reasons, which often are actual problems. A new product that is either not online yet or doesn't have a large user base might not have access to the users. Another big reason is they don't have the budget or the time. And with those, of course, you can point out negative consequences, do a little bit of research yourself, or point out missing information. But if there's not enough budget, it's not going to change anything. And so the question is, how can we simplify user research? How can we get around those restrictions we get from clients and stakeholders and still gain valuable insights about our users or potential users? And the answer to that is we use the data that is already out there. We all know that there's a bunch of information on the World Wide Web, so why not use that? And the first thing for this, the first method I'm going to show you is reviews. Of course, if you already have a product and a larger user base, it's super easy for you. Use all the feedback you can get or that you already got from past users, and make sure you look at both the good and the bad reviews, because that will give you an idea of what people already like about your product and what they don't like. So, as mentioned, with an existing product, you could find reviews on app stores, websites, or company reviews. Another one would be to look for product reviews on Google or even comparisons. I'm sure we've all been in the place where we had to decide between two different products or two different services. In the design sphere, that could have been Sketch versus Figma. And there's a bunch of different reviews and even comparisons of products on Google or out there that you could use to get some insights about what people are already saying about your product or even about the competitors' products. And yeah, so maybe there's something they don't like about a certain product that you could make better for your product. And then with this already mentioned, is great for existing products, but with looking at competitors, you can also use it for new products or small user bases. And you can do the same with looking at possible competitors and just reviewing their reviews on App Store or company or website reviews. And with this example, Juul, we had an e-cigarette client in the US. And even though we did have the time and budget, we're still curious to see what people say about the competitors. So we looked at their reviews. And another one was we had a housing client which offered a paid service for people to find new places to live at, which wasn't the general way like Zillow is, but more to actually swap places. You want to move somewhere and someone else wants to move somewhere else too. Maybe you're a match and you can just swap your places. Since it was a new product, though, there wasn't, or a fairly new product, there wasn't that many users we could ask. So we looked at general topics. What are the issues of the current rental situation, which gave us insights into what user the problems of the possible users could be. And yeah, in general, which I'll get to in a little bit too, is you could also search groups and forums for that. The next thing is the keyword research, which for me is one of the most important topics. It's not just good for SEO. There's, like I said before, there's all that information out there, trends, statistics, market specifics, and we can make use of that by just thinking a little bit, what are our keywords? And we did that for a medical client that researches and produces medication and treatments. And we looked for keywords for their different topics and areas. For example, here, clinical trial, we use keyword tools to come up with other keywords that we might not have thought about before. We then used those keywords to feed them into Google and also websites like Ask the Public to see what kind of questions are often asked. And with all those information, we could use the Google Advanced Search to just get those websites that include those one or all of the keywords we found. And as mentioned previously, if you just feed your keywords or phrases into Google, you'll also already get a bunch of results. But what you can also have a look at is the question section, because that's also a good way to get some more insights about what people are usually asking. And you'd be surprised of what kind of questions sometimes pop up there that you haven't even thought about. And with those keywords that you gathered, you can use them in different scenarios. One of them is social media and groups. If you already have an existing product, and given that you also use social media for your product or company, the first thing to do is check your comment sections and see what people are saying. With this example, there was a beauty brand and someone asked about the difference between two of the products. So the company could go ahead and include those information on their website to tailor it more to the questions and needs users have. Sorry. And another example is Nomad List is a website that gives information to digital nomads. What are the best places to live? How much does it cost there? How's the housing market there? And with this example, the people behind Nomad List could go ahead into groups like Facebook, Slack, Discord, LinkedIn, and type in their keywords and see what kind of groups there are. And in this case, there's an expats group in Mexico, and someone asked about the living in a particular place in Mexico. With that kind of information, Nomad List could go ahead and think about including those topics on their website as well if they haven't done that yet. Another great thing with those communities and groups is that if you found a fitting group that at least resembles your target group, you could check if you're allowed to post polls or surveys to get some more information about potential users of your product. So as you can see, all of those methods of gathering research from social media and groups are great for both new and existing products. The same goes for forums. Forums are a great way to see the interaction between users, to see what they're asking, what they're excited about, or what they don't like at all. And one of the most famous question or help forum, of course, is Quora. And we also use that with our keywords for the medical client to see what kind of questions are shown there. Another one, of course, is Reddit. Great forum, a lot of topics there, always worth to check it out. One example here is we had the automotive client Bugatti, and they were trying to introduce more services, features, content to their fans. So not to their paying clients, but because the cars are extremely expensive, but to the fans that just follow Bugatti because they're a fan of the brand and the cars. And using all the forums we found, we actually found out that there's a Bugatti configurator out there that people were super excited about, and it wasn't even clear if it was from Bugatti themselves. So that was an opportunity that opened up where Bugatti could think about introducing that kind of configurator to tailor their service more to their fans. And another thing for Bugatti was also that we found that there's different games out there like Gran Turismo that feature Bugatti cars, even though they're not labeled as Bugatti cars, but fans recognized those cars that they were able to choose as a specific Bugatti model. And they loved that kind of feature. And since it wasn't a collaboration with Bugatti themselves, there is another opportunity for them to actually have more of corporations and actually tailor their services to what their users or their fans especially like. And yeah, so the next one, if you don't have users yet, or you don't have the budget or time to actually conduct in-depth research studies, a good way is to use representatives. And that could be anything from your work colleagues, your family, your friends, anyone you could think of that has some kind of similarity with your target group. For example, for the housing client, since we didn't have many users yet, we also looked at where the people are that do the holiday home exchange and ask questions there to get access to those users. Another one was for an e-cigarette client. We were looking to show the flavors for the e-cigarettes in a different way to set them into the context of a particular moment. So what we did was we just asked our work colleagues that weren't involved in the project and that the ones that were smokers, in what kind of moments they usually enjoy their cigarette. And since e-cigarette smokers and regular smokers are fairly similar, we were able to use that information to create moments that are related to the specific flavors, and to just include more of a storytelling type rather than just showing the different flavors. Another good way to use the representative research studies is for testing naming conventions, for example, with using card sorting. And with this particular example, we had an automotive client, and we were talking about if design is the right term for interior and exterior style of a car, if people would understand what they find behind that. And in this case, we didn't look for car enthusiasts or similar to our target groups, but we just asked our family and friends what they think, what kind of information they would find if they clicked on the tab design. And that gave us enough information to make adjustments on the naming conventions. So we just talked about what we can do if we don't have our users, don't have access to them, or not enough money. But if we do have access to our users, we can use surveys and interviews. With interviews, of course, it can be very time-consuming and costly, but sometimes overlooked is that we might actually do have easy access to our users. One of them could be that the product we're trying to improve or create is for the internal employees or stakeholders. So for an automotive client, they published an app, and the app was for the dealers of the car client. So it was easy to just jump on a few calls with them and ask them a few questions. And that is oftentimes really overlooked. If there's people there that we can access, do it. Another way, if it's not internal, is to use pop-up or widget surveys that I'm sure some of you have already experienced. When you go on a website, you're about to exit the page and something pops up asking you why you're leaving or what they could do better and some other questions. So that is a good way to get a few responses. Of course, not everyone is going to respond to that if they're about to exit that. But there's different ways and different actions where you can include those kind of surveys. Another one is, for example, including questionnaires when someone signs up, like how did you find out about us, or on a contact form. And if there is a little bit of budget or the client can spare a little bit less of his margin, then you could also use small incentives for your surveys. But in general, always make sure that you tell your users that you're doing it for them and that you value them and their opinion. And they're going to be much more likely to actually help you with your surveys. And of course, as mentioned before, you can also post surveys on those social media groups and communities. The last one, which is also often overlooked, is the customer support. If you have customer support already in place, which of course existing products and larger user bases, that is it's especially helpful for, then make use of that, because your customer support staff are on the front line. They're the ones talking to your customers and users. So you could ask them what kind of feedback do they hear often from their users. That could be issues they have with the website or with the product that you might point out in the product description, so that it's easier for users to understand things. Or what users usually need help with. And as mentioned before, one of the housing client I was working for, they had this survey with when people deleted their accounts, and they asked them why they're deleting the account. And we had a bunch of responses for that. And one of them, or a few of them, stated that they just get too many emails every day, which of course should be an easy fix. Just do something about your email strategy and make sure you let your users know how many emails they're going to receive from you. Another one was that the service was too expensive. That might not be as easy to get around, but you can think about adjusting your pricing strategy or in introducing a trial phase. And the last one here was that the landlord doesn't accept the home exchange. So we thought about ways to help our users and to also make landlords understand that they have no negative consequences by doing so. And yeah, with all of those methods shown, besides gathering valuable insights, other benefits are that it's already based on available data, so you don't have to conduct any studies. It works for both new and existing products at any time of your product process, whether that's for a new product or during when you're trying to include new features. It doesn't cost as much and it isn't as time consuming. So there's a bunch of benefits for you to always make sure that there's some other methods out there that you can use. And yeah, so that's the end of it. And remember, any research is better than just guessing. So make sure to always use some kind of research. And yeah, I'm looking forward to your questions, and feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or Instagram.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Michelle. That was really good. And it's always incredible how much information is available at people's fingertips that they're just
Yeah.
not aware of right now. So, as Michelle said, please do ask any questions that you have. So whether that's on UXDX, the chatbot there, or chat box, or on YouTube, whichever platform you're watching, if you ask any questions, I'll put them through to Michelle. But to get started, one of the things that always jumps out to me as a big risk of looking at existing resources is you're not getting control over the audience segment that you're kind of polling. And one thing that really struck with me was an experience that I had where we thought, okay, this is repeatedly coming up. We're seeing complaints or something about something. But when we did the research, we found that the vast majority of our users were actually happy with it. And had we gone ahead with the change, we would have ended up annoying more of our customers than not. So how do you deal with that risk of who is this kind of audience segment that's being reviewed?
Yeah, so I mean, in general, of course, those alternative research do not replace other research, like the primary research, because that is still extremely important. I see those alternatives more for if you don't have another choice, to be able to conduct some kind of research and as addition to your primary research. So, or as a starting point to get your clients to wanting to conduct some kind of user research. And with those issues you just mentioned, yeah, I mean, there's always that kind of danger that you do something. But for those kind of features, you could start with just A/B testing. So you get some more results, whether people like to have the feature or don't. And I think, yeah, those kind of ways to make sure that you don't roll out a feature to everyone and just being like, hey, here it is, whatever you do with it now, is way less harming to your users than, yeah, if you wouldn't do those like A/B testing, for example.
Great. And can you give me an indication of how much time would you devote to this kind of upfront, just secondary research versus kind of devoting to your primary research?
Yeah, I mean, of course, this depends on where in the product stage you are. If it's a new product, I would definitely use some more time for that. But if it's for new features, it could just be a day of research, doing like picking out the methods that fit the best to what I'm looking for. And for a new product, I would devote more time to it. But you could also justify that with the client. For example, the keyword research could also already help them with their SEO strategy. So you're doing two things at the same time. So there's ways around telling them like, hey, we need a little bit of time, but not as much as we would if we conducted the actual user research. So for a new product, I've just been working on a few of those methods for one of my clients, and I devoted, I think, like 1.5 days to it to get some more insights about our users at the beginning of the stage.
Great. And with that information that you're collecting, how do you? Because I know that there might be a bias with some people of, like, let's say a source like Reddit, and people
Yeah.
might discount it because of assumptions about the types of people who use it. So how do you present the information that you gather, and how do you make sure that people kind of recognize the value of it?
The clients or the users?
The clients, sorry.
Clients. Yeah. So in general, I always say, like, since if there's no primary research done, all of those insights should be taken, like, don't bet on it. You know, it's always with those, you always have to tell the clients that it might be opportunities that you should test maybe at a later stage, or yeah, that you always have to make sure if it also aligns with the strategy and the goals of the companies, because um, not every feature that every user wants also makes sense to a company. So you always have to make sure that it's aligned, and yeah, just be open up front to the client, to say that's a trial and error process, especially if you don't have primary research.
Brilliant. Well, I think that's the end of my questions that I have. So thank you once again for sharing. I found it really useful, and I hope you enjoyed sharing with everybody.
Yeah, thank you so much.